the second largest population of Jews live in Iran. How interesting is that?
We demolished their houses here in Jerusalem. We cut down their olive trees. We confiscate their property, their waters. And most Israelis expect them to accept it.
Israel uses its Jewish identity as a means to almost blackmail the world and the Western powers, especially Europeans, who treated the Jewish people in the worst possible manner in the 20th century.
Hello and very warm welcome. I'm Sohail Qureshi with my program Sharp Edge from our London studios of quewsnews. The world is actually trembling with the fear of a possible World War III or nuclear Armageddon between Israel and Iran with the recent skirmishes and ongoing serious conflict. What started with the Palestinian issue between Palestine and Israel, and after 60,000 innocent civilians, men, women, and children having got killed, unfortunately, now this conflict has gone straight to the jugular of the Middle East power, Iran. Israel and Iran are blowing really heavy shots at each other through missiles and all kind of weaponry using, including American F-35 and F-16 aeroplanes. To discuss this and many other issues, I have my guest from New York, Professor of Humanity and Human Rights, Raza Rumi, a famous American-Pakistani journalist, critic, and commentator. Very warm welcome, Raza. You must have been watching very keenly what's going on.
Absolutely. Watching with a lot of both worry and constant how this conflict is escalating and, becoming something that may actually, bring the entire world into its fold. That's the real challenge, Dr. Qureshi.
Yeah. But what started as a very kind of a local or regional issue between Gaza and Hamas and Israel on 7th of October 2023, it has really, really gone to a different decibel. I'm going to play a couple of videos for you and for us to go through to see what really happened so that we don't forget the very context. Cut one, please.
Israel, for generations, we kill the Palestinians. We injure the Palestinians. We have more than 1,500 Palestinians in administrative detention. We demolished their houses here in Jerusalem. We cut down their olive trees. We confiscate their property, their waters. And most Israelis expect them to accept it. And when they don't accept it, they react in violent way. They blame them, the Palestinians.
As you heard, Raza, so same sentiment have been echoed by a number of people, as you'll see down the line in this program. However, when any non-Jewish, or including some Jewish people, they openly may do a critique or criticize Israel, immediately the anti-Semitism label is put on the place. So I just want to have your views about what you just heard from Professor Meir Baruchin and the overall anti-Semitism versus a genuine critique of Israelis' conduct in this war against Palestine.
This is the fundamental issue here, Dr. Qureshi, that for Israel and all its supporters, challenging the Zionist policies of the state are equated with the Semites or Jewish religion. These are two separate issues. You can be a pro-Jewish but anti-Zionism, And there are many Israelis themselves and many Jewish people around the world who do not support Israel's view of the Palestinians and its expansionist policies and the brutal techniques it uses to suppress the Palestinians. Much of their territory is under occupation of Israel, which is, according to international law, illegal. And there are multiple resolutions and outstanding issues. But because Israel has this support in the global power matrix, nobody can challenge that. So any criticism of Israel is immediately painted as anti-Semitism, and therefore, it becomes kind of illegitimate. You cannot really say that. And what we're seeing in Gaza for the past 2 years or so is again a replay and continuation of those settler colonial policies. You deny people food, water, aid, healthcare. Babies and children have been killed. More than 50,000 people, including staffers of the United Nations, including workers of the NGOs, have died through indiscriminate bombing on civilians. This is against, even if assuming that, the Palestinians and the Israelis were in a war, although war is between two equals. Palestinians have no army, they have no tanks, they have no aircraft, they have no nukes. Even if you think it's a war like that, you cannot bomb civilians. It is against the Geneva Conventions and all other tenets of international law. And now, on this particular crisis that has erupted with Israeli strikes on Iran, same methodology has been applied. Apartment buildings have been targeted where people and families are living. One of the on June 13th, when those surprise strikes were carried out, there was one apartment building where apparently 60 people died, along with a military commander that Israelis were trying to neutralize in their language. And, no regard for civilian lives. And Western media, unfortunately, whether it's the American or the British or the European variant, they refuse to show that and refuse to highlight that. On the other hand, Israel strikes on Tel Aviv whenever there's a civilian injury or civilians are caused discomfort. That's highlighted because that kind of builds the public sympathy for Israel as opposed to the adversary. So there's a clear cut. It is such a complex history and a complex situation. In short, Israel uses its Jewish identity as a means to almost blackmail the world and the Western powers, especially Europeans, who treated the Jewish people in the worst possible manner in the 20th century. And all of that is recorded. I'm not making it up. The Holocaust was not done by Iranians or the Saudis or the Palestinians. It was done by the Europeans themselves. Yes, Dr. Qureshi.
Yeah, I think you have really encapsulated the entire journey of this very question. So thank you very much for that. That's true. And I know a number of top analysts, commentators, scholars, philosophers, thinkers, and the offsprings of the Holocaust, they have been saying more or less the same. But the worst is this, that unfortunately, there has been an attempt to embroil America, the most powerful country in the world, into this conflict, which is only going to make life difficult, not only for people of this geography in Middle East, perhaps for Israelis as well, and the rest of the world. I'm just going to play another video for you, and I'm sure that you must have watched some of them. Cut 2, please.
Neither Iran or the United States want to fight each other. It's the Israelis who have been trying to pull the Iranians and the Americans into a fight.
Netanyahu's greatest dream in life is a war between the United States and Iran.
Netanyahu will drag him into the abyss. He wants this war in the Middle East come hell or high water, and it's not in their interest.
What war?
The war with Iran.
We don't want to go to war against Iran. I don't think we should be fighting wars on behalf of Israel.
Make it clear to Netanyahu that he should not be dragging America into war.
It's very clear that some of the top minds who are both humane, who are educated, well-learned, professors like Professor Mearsheimer, Professor Zach, and others, and the congressmen of the United States. They're saying the same. So you are in New York, not really far from the echelons of power. What is the pulse, the American people's pulse on this issue?
Is somewhat complicated. Historically, there have been many voices that have been asking the US to attack Iran and neutralize its nuclear program. Mind you, Iran, for the last 30 years, I mean, as long as I remember, since I have grown up and read, the story has been the same, that Iran is about to do a nuclear test. It is about to create articles from New York Times from 1995, 97, 2000. Every year it's the same story. They're about to build a bomb. Let's bomb them out. And so that has so there's a very strong group within the American establishment which has been wanting that. But President Trump, on the other hand, that this time when he was running his campaign, he spoke about peace. And even in recent months, he has been talking about, giving up the old policies of war and finding a way of peace. Although, let's not forget that Obama entered into a peace deal with Iran in 2015-16. And 2015, and one of the first things that Trump did when he became the president for the first time was to reverse that deal, because Obama and Democrats had done it. Now, Trump has been trying to do that deal, and the Iranians have been talking with them. They were on the negotiating table. But I guess the Israelis, and especially Netanyahu's policy for the last 3-4 decades, he has been saying that Iran is a real threat, and we have to, teach Iran a lesson and stop it from making a nuclear bomb. Now, the problem here is that, more than the nuclear bomb or sites, the real objective this time seems to get a final solution, which is a regime change in Iran, and get the mullahs out of power. And mind you, I'm no fan or defender of the mullahs in Iran. They have 101 problems when it comes to women, minorities, their brutal punishments. But the problem is, it is for the Iranian people to decide. You, I, Netanyahu, or Trump, or whoever cannot really speak for the Iranians and for their welfare. It is the Iranian people who have to ultimately throw out their oppressive regime. But this playbook, Dr. Qureshi, is now, it is becoming very clear. If you see the events from the past 2 years, first, indiscriminate bombing on Gaza. Later on, Trump's statement that, we will turn it into a Middle East Riviera, will push the people out, basically land, get the real estate and develop it as a housing project, which is get rid of the problematic Palestinians, send them to Egypt, Jordan, wherever. And then you saw what was happening, in Yemen. In Houthis were, because they were sending all these rockets and projectiles, and they were neutralized, they were attacked repeatedly by Israel, by the US, and then you saw a regime change in Syria. Assad, whose family has been ruling there, again an authoritarian leader, and no defense of his tactics, but out, and a former Al-Qaeda sympathizer whom the US had branded as a terrorist.
Well, terrorist on the terrorist list, right, Gilani?
Yeah, I mean, so
it is. You're right.
And Lebanon,
right.
Dr. Qureshi, before I forget, Lebanon, they also, in Beirut, all those attacks, people holding, you're a doctor, all those pagers that people were using, they started exploding because Israeli technological advancement had gotten access to that. So you see, there's a trend. Now so all the proxies or the guerrilla fighters against the state of Israel, Hamas, Hezbollah, they all were targeted, their leadership eliminated. And now they came to Iran a much weakened Iran, which has already burdened under sanctions for last 30, 40 years. And now Iran is the target to weaken and change the government. Now, whether they'll be able to do that is $1 million question. Yes.
Yeah, I know you're absolutely right. So I have prepared for you. You read my mind, a small video there. And I'm going to ask my producer to do cut 3, please.
In what year do you think Benjamin Netanyahu first warned that Iran was 3 to 5 years away from building a nuclear bomb? He wrote a book in 1995. Didn't mention the fact that he'd pledged 3 years previously that they'd have a bomb within 3 years. Instead, he repeated the claim that Iran would have the bomb this time by 5 to 7 years at the most, which would mean that 2002 at the latest would be the point. 7 years after that, he told the visiting US congressional delegation that Iran was just 1 to 2 years away from having a nuclear weapon. So it would have then been by 2011. And now he's making exactly the same claim to justify the bombing of Iran overnight. The same claim that he has been making since at least 1992.
Yes, 1992 is going on for quite some time and vilifying. And I think what Iran, I agree with you that we have a lot of questions against the way the Iranian government and mullahs and the dictatorship and the treatment of women, minority, and all of them. Having said that, the second largest population of Jews live in Iran. How interesting is that? That between 15 to 25,000 Jews live in Iran even as of today, including one member of parliament. So the role of media into kind of extending the narrative, and very well covered by the United States of America, which was the eagle, which was the beacon of hope and liberty for so many freedom fighters, so many of freedom movements. And in fact, one of a very big reason for the dissolution of British Empire, and that was one of the conditions, it is said, that American helped the British against the Germans. So what has happened to that America now?
Well, I mean, first of all, let's be very honest. I think when it comes to foreign policy of the United States, they don't really care about democracy. It's a lot of lip service. And the neocons and the Democrats have used it, to basically peddle their foreign policy agenda. They wanted to bring democracy to Afghanistan. Look what happened. The country was destroyed. 20 years of occupation, fighting, bombing. And what is the net result? The Taliban are in power, who have denied girls from going to school. They wanted to bring democracy to Iraq. Look at what the result is. They wanted to bring democracy to Libya. Look what has happened. They wanted to bring democracy to Syria. Look at the Syrians and their allies in the Middle East, the Saudis, the Kuwaitis, the Qataris, the UAE. They all are monarchies. They all are dictatorships. So I don't know which democracy, frankly, that has been a constant theme of the 20th century America and its foreign policy abroad. Now, the difference was that within the United States, they did build democratic institutions. They did build a very powerful system of checks and balances. And, the courts, the independent Congress, and civil society, academia, which kept power under check. Now, what has happened is that, this is a global moment all over the world, that in the past decade, even those democratic freedoms within the United States are declining. And once again, the Palestinian issue has been one of the major triggers for this meltdown. If you see what is happening in the US universities with the non-profit institutions and this sort of Trumpian worldview about universities being these bad places for dissent. So democracy is also waning within America. So at this juncture, it doesn't really matter whether, countries abroad have democracy or not, because even the United States is kind of giving up on that idea. So I think we're in a post-liberal democracy era. It is dying and declining and breaking up, and something new has to replace it. And Dr. Qureshi, it is therefore a very interesting time. What would be the replacement? We will have to wait and see. But within that, we see that, these conflicts are also indicative of a kind of lack of moral clarity on part of the Western countries.
You're right. What we have seen, the decline and demise, it just kind of continues not only in America, all over the world. I know that right now there's a no king movement really has started taking its roots in America against the Trumpian / Orwellian with some problem with noise. But what has been happening in the context of what we earlier discussed is that we have seen this trumpeteering of Iran having a nuclear bomb, and that is why it is important, using IAEA as an instrument. And I have this short video, cut 4, please, where Mehdi Hassan, the famous British-American journalist, he takes one of the Israeli former minister head on. Cut 4, please.
How many nuclear weapons does Iran have as of today?
Right now, I hope none.
Okay, how many does Israel have?
No idea.
No idea. You were in the government. They don't tell you that stuff.
No idea.
Who do they tell?
No idea.
Do you recognize the hypocrisy of Israel having a secret illicit nuclear weapons program that it won't open up its doors to and won't talk about, and then lecturing everyone else in the region about nuclear weapons?
Absolutely not. You know why?
You talk about hypocrisy. If an Iranian guest came on my show and I asked him about Iran's nuclear program, he said, I don't know, I'm not going to talk about it. Would you be okay with that? You'd be outraged.
Of course.
And you sit here as a former minister of the Israeli government saying, I don't know, I never talked about nuclear.
Because there was like 16 United Nations Security Council resolutions against Iran.
And there is against Israel. And there is against Israel as well.
About
your nuclear program.
No.
Yes, there is. UN Resolution 487. Let me read it to you. The UN Security Council in 1981 calls upon Israel urgently to place its nuclear facilities under the safeguards of the IAEA. Why haven't you done that?
Because Iran has never attacked a neighbor. Israel has repeatedly attacked its neighbors. Iran signed the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Israel has refused to sign. Iran submits to inspection by the International Nuclear Energy Agency. Israel refuses to submit. Iran has no nuclear weapons. Israel has between 75 and 400 nuclear weapons. So Israel poses an existential threat to Iran. For the last 40 years, Israel has conducted a systematic campaign of disinformation about Iran. Why the lies? Why the double standards? Why the hypocrisy?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Raza. It's been a little bit longer video, but I thought to discuss with you, which I'm sure you must have watched this clip, and to our audience, that there is no kind of a morality, as you rightly said. There are in the world, and probably the world might is right is correct. Now the question is this: when some sovereign nation like Iran is pushed to the brink, you cannot kill all Iranians. It's not going to be possible. So that will give a very strong message to Iran, whether it is the government of the mullahs or any other government, that if you want to stay intact as a sovereign nation and in power, you must have a nuclear deterrence. And that is a very, very strong message to the world, and a very negative message, because that is going to proliferate. You must have watched this, and I'm sure that you are in academic circles. So what do you think people take this kind of hypocrisy, especially people who are thinking minds?
So I think there's a lot of, many people are questioning. I think at the moment, the biggest concern in the United States is how far the US will get into this war. The official position by Donald Trump and his administration has been that we are not doing this. This is Israel going ahead with the, that 60-day deadline, etc. But at the same time, first they make that statement, and then President Trump has said, no, he's siding with Iran. I'm supporting Iran. Israel, and they have our support. While the reality is, Dr. Qureshi, that Israel would not have done this without the green light from the United States. And even if there was no clear-cut green light, all the Where's the equipment, the ammunition, the planes, the drones, the technology coming from? It's coming from the United States. Where's the cash coming from? Every year billions of dollars are given to Israel for its security and its defense, right? So the US is culpable. Now, a lot of people, Trump's own supporters, are questioning him. They're saying, you said you will not get America involved in another expensive war because the earlier wars have cost trillions of dollars to Americans and American taxpayers. So there's the Trumpian base, which is also questioning that. And then, of course, the independent commentators are saying if the US gets dragged into it, where would it end? Because then you have Russia and China as well. How far would they then, if they get involved, then are we moving towards the world war, another world war, which is the subject of your program today? And where does it end? And then, as you see that now, the US, Israel, and India are very clearly in one camp, because India is totally supporting Israel. And China, Russia, and Pakistan at the United Nations Security Council have very clearly spoken for Iran. So these camps are very clear globally, right? And Pakistan is important because Pakistan is a neighbor of Iran. Pakistan is a neighbor of China. And, even if Pakistan does not get involved with neutrality, it will be a question. Because if the US gets involved, then the US might want Pakistan to get involved. See, there are all these unknowns and challenges. So therefore, at this stage, it is important for the United States to end this. Trump has made a statement today that he can create a ceasefire like India-Pakistan, but he needs to act on that and stop his baby Netanyahu, or actually whichever US president is there, ask him to behave and stop this aggressive attacks on Iran and its civilians. Yes.
You're absolutely right, Raza, that this conflict is really enlarging day by day like a monstrous tumor and engulfing the neighboring states, especially Pakistan and China and Russia and everyone around that, and especially in those lines. We have heard, and actually there was an old interview of Benjamin Netanyahu where he was hyphenating Iran and Pakistan in the same category, or showing concerns about them acquiring nuclear arsenals. So I'm going to do a cut 5 so you'll understand why it is important for Pakistan to look at it, and also for General Assimuni, the Field Marshal, or Assimuni in fact, that to be ready, because it is possible that after Iran, Pakistan is next. Cut 5, please.
Nuclear weapons, or from nuclear weapons meeting up with a militant Islamic regime. The first is called Iran, the second is called Pakistan, because if these radical regimes have nuclear weapons, they will not obey the rules that have been obeyed in the last almost 7 decades.
I appreciate that that this is an old clip. However, in the recent Pakistan-India conflict, the way the Israeli drones were used and the way the Israel fully supported India, it becomes much more important. And also recently, there are some news circulating, maybe at this time they're just simply whispers, that somehow Pakistan and China, especially Pakistan, is clandestinely helping Iran. Now, the question is this, that Iran and Pakistan has historic ties. Both countries have centuries-old ties. In fact, the Pakistan national anthem is almost 100% in Persian language. So, and also, the one thing that probably the world and Israel and America forgets, that Iran is a very ideological country. It's a symbol of 20-25% of Shia Muslims who are imbued with the sacrifice of Hazrat Imam Hussain, al-Islam, and all that. And that conflagration can really engulf not only to America, the entire world. And that is something that I want you to comment on, that especially the ideological Shiaism, which is imbued in the sacrifice, And it is not going to be another Palestine there. And also the strategic location of Hormuz Gulf and the waters there, which gives access to the 33% of the energy of the world.
This clip is very old, and definitely I think that things have changed quite a bit. But it is a matter of concern, Dr. Qureshi, even if Israel does not directly get into a war situation with Pakistan, but imagine if there's a regime change in Iran, and a U.S.-Israel supported group such as the former Pahlavi dynasty or other diaspora groups in the UK or US and elsewhere, they come into power, obviously with the support of Israel. That means that Pakistan would have to then watch out, not just from India on its eastern border, but from Iran in addition to Afghanistan. So Pakistan's security situation is therefore will become very, very problematic, being encircled with three problematic, or it's not outrightly hostile regimes and governments. Even the Taliban are not being nice to Pakistan these days.
That's true.
So, but the second issue is Pakistan's nuclear program. Because, after if Iran is stopped from doing that, then the only country, Muslim majority country in the world to have nuclear weapons would be Pakistan. And that will be a problem. Israel can turn around tomorrow after doing the arc, as I mentioned to you, Palestine, Yemen, Lebanon, Syria, Iran, then it's Pakistan. There is a logical no-brainer. But even if that's not the case, I think that Pakistan will have to be very, very careful on what it does. Pakistan is not supplying any arms to Iran in this conflict. Pakistan is neutral, but it is giving full diplomatic support as a neighbor, based on decades of friendly relationship at the United Nations level in public. It is arguing for Iran's case. It cannot get involved into this conflict for a variety of reasons. First, as you know, the Israeli war is not just Israel's war, it's also America's covert war going on. So Pakistan cannot afford to annoy America because of Pakistan's economic dependence on IMF and World Bank. And generally, its historic relations with the US as well. Secondly, if Pakistan, fully supports the American military adventurism or efforts in Iran, then Pakistan runs the risk of annoying its 1/4 population, as you mentioned, 20 to 30%, I mean, the exact number is unknown, are basically Shiite Muslims in Pakistan. And that can turn into a big sectarian nightmare and, both uprising and protests within Pakistan. So it is a very tough situation.
I'm just going to take on to that stance that you just mentioned, that Pakistan is neutral. But the entire geopolitics has changed. Do you think neutrality is the best way to serve Pakistan at this stage? And is there a forward thinking and a longitudinal vision? Because as they say, that the worst place in hell is reserved for those who assume neutrality at the time of moral crisis. And it's not only a moral crisis in next door to Pakistan, but also it is very important. It's just the logical end to the next level. As squeeze between India and then a hostile Iran, it's going to be dangerous. So now, are Pakistan or the Field Marshal Asimani just going to keep quiet there, wait for its turn, just like chickens in the coop, waiting for somebody to take them out and slaughter, or there is going to be something more proactive? Because sometimes it is important that you take a stance and you don't look at these small things, that IMF loan and this loan and that loan, because there's a time, the Pakistan did not go to fight for a battle. The battle has come here. And I suppose that is something that they must be thinking about.
No, I fully agree with you that neutrality, but Pakistan has, as I mentioned earlier at the Security Council, Pakistan is trying its very best. See, Dr. Qureshi, in the recent India-Pakistan standoff, Iran had a similar kind of a position. It was giving Pakistan diplomatic support, but not all out, because Iran supposedly, until recently, had very good relations with India as well. And, if you don't forget that Iran and India were building the Chabahar port as an alternative route to Afghanistan. It was much doubted by India. India put in its money to create that. But, that's an expensive and a very long route for trade and transportation. Similarly, last year, Israel also fired many missiles into Pakistani territory, and Pakistan responded. So it's been a relationship not without its difficulties. But having said that, Pakistan's position, its foreign office, its top leadership, its stance at the UN is very clear. And I guess if things come to a pass, this support could increase. But at the moment, Pakistan, as I mentioned, has its own constraints, its economy, its dependence on the Western financial institutions, and its very close relationship with the Gulf monarchies and states, which Pakistan is again dependent on for oil, cash, and support at the international level. So it is a tricky situation. It can't go all out in support of Iran militarily, because that would then get reprisals from Israel and the United States at some stage. So I guess it's a balancing act and a tough one at that.
Yeah. Just taking back the discussion and the point to the Israel and Iran, and there is apparently damage to multiple Iranian nuclear establishments. However, there is also a rumor that maybe it is time for Iran to detonate a nuclear bomb and call itself a nuclear power. Now, if there is an existential threat to Iran with a double whammy of Israel and United States, and what do you think the option will be left with the current Islamic regime?
So I think, of course, that would be they have announced that they are not going to cooperate with the International Atomic Energy Regulator. They are not going to give them reports. That was yesterday's very clear-cut statement. But the real question, Dr. Qureshi, is how far were they in this process of building a nuclear bomb? Now, it is linked to uranium enrichment, and the reports were, which IAEA had said, in their last meeting, that Iran had reached 60% enrichment threshold. For the bomb or a weapon, you need above 80, close to 90%. So they are close, but not that close to do a detonation tomorrow. Number one. Number two is those surprise attacks and targeting of the nuclear scientists. Now you see that has dealt a big blow to Iranian nuclear program, because you see, when your leadership and the scientists in control of that work and that whole process are eliminated in this manner, and it's a very top secret nuclear knowledge. It is not like an open book or a manual which is there. It is mostly, person to person. People have institutional memory. So that would take some time. But yes, if Iran survives this particular moment, it would detonate at the earliest as it can. But the real question at this stage is whether Iran survives this conflict or not.
Yeah.
And that is unlikely. Number one, because Irani air defense is extremely weak. It has breached. Number two, Dr. Qureshi, you may have read the reports. The Israelis have breached the Iranian security system with a complex network of intelligence agents.
Yeah.
Mossad, they had built a drone base within the capital, and they'd infiltrated their security agencies to the extent that they were telling them exactly which commander is in which apartment.
Yes.
And that particular targeted attack was being done in that apartment. Now that that network is still existing. So I, unfortunately, much as I want Iran to defend itself and this war to end, and unless there is intervention by the United States or the UN or the European Union, I see this conflict will escalate, and I'm not very hopeful for Iran, unfortunately.
There is there are lots of news reports before actually this conflict started that Iran may have tens of thousands ballistic and other missiles which are underground, and in fact, despite all efforts, that they are continuously sending 100, 200 missiles at a time, which has actually devastating effect on Israel as well. Israel is a small, tiny country, about 140 kilometer, no, it's about 350, no, 300 miles long and about 100, less than 100 miles wide. It's widest place, very densely populated, as we have seen some of these attacks. So I wonder if Iran decides to send 1,000 missiles at once, what will happen, and whether Israel is going to go that fabled and infamous Samson option, because then Israel has clearly said, and I'll come to that in a minute. Before that, I'm going to play this a short video. Cut 6, please.
The biggest threat that we face is not Iran and its mythical nuclear weapons program. It is Israel and its 200 to 400 nuclear weapons and the Samson option. And if you're not aware of what the Samson option is, Israel says that if its existence is threatened, that it will destroy the world with its nukes. There are many high-level Talmudic Jewish supremacist thinkers in Israel who are ready to launch nukes and destroy Europe and the rest of the world if indeed they feel their existence is threatened. And make no mistake about it, Israel is living on borrowed time. So is Israel going to exercise the Samson option?
So what it appears to me that there is the pretty much last chance for Iran is to cause a crushing injury to Israel to show them that they have a soft belly. That's one. And also the Hormuz Strait card has not been played fully, because that is something that can affect all of us, especially in Europe, because you're sitting in America, you live there. So I think America is not that much dependent on the energy as the rest of the world is. And if something like that happens, because that will be a catastrophe for the entire world. And that is why it is important that people should live in peace in that area. Israelis, Jewish, Christians, Muslims, and those who are non-believers. And I wonder that who are these small psychopathic people in all governments who have brought us, the world, to close to an extinction when you hear about the Samson's options and the nukes and all that. And one wonder, is this what we send our elected candidates into the parliament and the premiership and the presidentship? So aren't you a bit scared that where these kind of rhetoric and these things are going to?
No, it is a very scary situation, as I mentioned earlier. What if this conflict expands and is not no peaceful solution is sought? Ceasefire does not happen. What happens to Iran? What happens to neighborhood? What happens to Pakistan? What happens to Middle East and the world at large? This is a very critical situation, and unfortunately, Israel has been such a reckless and irresponsible state to have put the entire world at risk, and the United States, unfortunately, has not been able to stop Israel. In fact, there may be a tacit support and approval of all that is happening. Now, coming back to the minority, I think, Dr. Qureshi, I would disagree. The polls show that a large number of Israelis, because it is a propaganda, because Israel is the statehood is based on Zionist ideology, and one of the tenets of this state is propaganda. And a lot of Israelis have been brainwashed constantly about this enmity with Palestinians, with Muslims, with Arabs, although they're the same people, same stock. We
Semites, yeah.
Abrahamic family, unfortunately. But that is what politics and statehood do to your brain. So if you look at the recent polls, if I remember correctly, there were 2 or 3 polls. 50 to 60% of Israelis supported this attack on Iran. And prior to that, most were supporting the horrific attacks on Gaza, which are ongoing. The world's attention is now diverted from Gaza to Iran. And while Israel continues the blockade of hapless population living in tents with no water, no food, no power supplies, babies dying, no healthcare, no clinics, no doctors, no UN relief trucks, another front has been opened. Now, obviously, ultimately, it is the backers of Israel, like the United States, like European countries, because if you see French president's statement yesterday, he's like, Iran is attacking Israel, and we stand in solidarity with Israel. I mean, Macron should get his brain tested that who actually attacked Iran in the first place. At the German foreign minister and the German's leadership is also uttering the same kind of nonsense. And even Britain, which otherwise the biggest proponent of Westminster model of democracy and blah, 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 is also completely, trapped in this pro-Israel orbit. So until these countries and the public opinion within these countries changes to pressurize the Americans, the Brits, the French, the Germans to stop this violence, we are unfortunately going to see more horrific and barbaric acts in the coming days. I'm sorry for sounding so cynical. I wish there was a way out. But
I'm sorry, it's a very sardonic smile and a very nervous giggle that we had with this very sombering thoughts and very doomsday prophecy. And probably that is the price that we law-abiding, innocent, unsuspecting, and civil citizens of the world will pay, because we are not rising up. Again, Martin Luther King Jr. said that it is not the oppression and cruelty of bad people, but the silence over it of good people. And that is what is happening, because some people are just making this very rash, reckless decision, of course, fueled by the military-industrial complex, which is affecting the peace and harmony of the world. Because there can't be a peace between a lamb and a lion. It's just simple as that. It is not possible. So that gives a message to every country and its military to be strong and be very, very strong and get whatever arsenal that you have in your hand so that you can protect yourself in the time of need. So, yes, so unless you have anything else to add to what
I think we have covered all the...
I think you've been fantastic. You have been very, very candid, more like my favorite author, Gore Vidal, and I really wish for your safety and your well-being, because you are both in Pakistan and in America, and this kind of a candor is unheard of, but well done and bravo to you. So very warm welcome to my show again, and goodbye. Thank you very, very much for joining us, Raza. We will definitely bother you again, and I hope the audience watched this entire program, and I apologize, there was a little bit of a technical glitch in the sound, but I'm sure they will be able to manage it next time. So until the next program, I wish all the people in the world and in the Middle East, Israelis, Iranians, Palestinians, everybody, peace and harmony, and may Allah protect everybody. God bless you.